Most people think being polite protects their image. In reality, it quietly erases their authority. Every unnecessary smile, apology, or explanation teaches others how little you value your own position. And once that lesson is learned, it is rarely unlearned. What follows is not about becoming rude. It is about becoming unreadable, controlled, and selective. By the end, you will recognize which good habits are actually leaks of power, and you will know exactly when silence does more than words ever could. Most people apologize automatically long before responsibility is even established. It is a conditioned reflex designed to reduce tension, not to correct wrongdoing. Psychologically, every unnecessary apology sends a quiet signal: I am unsure of my position. The human brain reads that signal instantly and adjusts the power dynamic without conscious thought. What begins as politeness quickly becomes a pattern of self-demotion. Once others associate you with habitual apologies, they stop questioning whether you are actually at fault. They simply assume you are. Apologizing is rarely about manners. It is about fear of conflict, fear of disapproval, fear of being seen as difficult. The unaware mind believes that apologizing keeps relationships smooth. In reality, it trains others to offload discomfort, frustration, and even blame onto you. When you apologize for delays caused by others, for boundaries you have the right to enforce, or for simply taking up space, you reinforce a narrative that your presence is an inconvenience. That narrative spreads quietly, reinforced by repetition. Those who understand power treat apologies as precise instruments, not emotional pacifiers. An apology is only valuable when it acknowledges a real error and restores trust. Anything beyond that weakens its impact. When everything is apologized for, nothing carries weight. Silence, on the other hand, is often interpreted as confidence. It forces others to sit with uncertainty instead of watching you neutralize it for them. That discomfort subtly shifts authority back into your hands. There is also a deeper psychological consequence. Constant apologizing erodes internal self-trust. Each apology reinforces the idea that you are perpetually misaligned, perpetually in the wrong, perpetually needing correction. Over time, this affects posture, tone, and decision-making. You begin pre-editing yourself before others ever speak. This is not humility, it is self-surveillance. Controlled individuals replace unnecessary apologies with neutral acknowledgement or firm clarity. Noted, understood. That won't work. These responses close loops without lowering status. They do not escalate, explain, or submit. They simply exist as statements of reality. Very few people realize this, but authority is not claimed through dominance. It is assumed through restraint. When you stop apologizing for existing, for deciding, for disagreeing, people recalibrate how they approach you. They speak more carefully. They project less. They respect more. Not because you demanded it, but because your behavior stopped inviting disrespect. Most people explain themselves as a defensive reflex, not as a strategic choice. The moment their decision is questioned, they rush to justify, clarify, and soften their stance. On the surface, this appears reasonable. Beneath it, however, lies a psychological confession: I need you to agree with me. The human mind interprets excessive explanation as uncertainty, and uncertainty immediately lowers perceived authority. What should have been a closed decision becomes an open negotiation. Explaining yourself when no explanation is owed teaches others that your choices are provisional. It invites scrutiny, debate, and permission-seeking dynamics. The more detail you offer, the more angles others find to challenge you. This is why high-status individuals speak in conclusions, not processes. They do not narrate their internal reasoning, because doing so hands leverage to whoever is listening. Once you expose your reasoning, you allow others to pull at it, reshape it, or use it against you. This habit is rooted in a subtle fear of being misunderstood or disliked. Unaware individuals believe transparency creates trust. In controlled environments, it often does the opposite. Over-explanation signals anxiety around perception. It tells the other person that their approval carries weight over your decisions. This shifts the hierarchy quietly but decisively. You may still be speaking, but you are no longer leading the interaction. There is also a social illusion at play. People assume that if they explain well enough, resistance will disappear. In reality, resistance is rarely about logic. It is about position. When someone senses that you feel obligated to justify yourself, they instinctively push further, even if they cannot articulate why. Power dynamics are felt, not debated. The more you explain, the more you confirm that the other person has the right to assess and approve your choices. Strategic restraint changes this dynamic entirely. When you state a decision without elaboration, you create a psychological stop point. The listener must either accept it or reveal their attempt to override you. Silence after a clear statement is especially powerful. It denies the other person emotional fuel and forces them to sit with the reality that the decision already exists. Most people retreat at this point, not because they agree, but because the frame has shifted. Over time, constant explaining damages internal authority as well. You begin anticipating objections before they are raised. Your thoughts become tangled with imagined resistance. Decisions slow down. Confidence erodes. This is how capable individuals quietly lose influence without ever failing outwardly. They are still competent, but no longer decisive. Those who operate from a position of control understand a simple truth: explanation is a tool, not an obligation. When you choose to explain, it is to instruct, not to seek permission. A brief statement of intent is often enough. Anything more should be intentional, measured, and rare. When you stop narrating yourself, others listen differently. They sense finality. And finality, more than persuasion, is what establishes authority. Most people agree quickly not because they truly align, but because they fear friction. They confuse harmony with safety and believe that smooth interactions protect their social position. In reality, instant agreement signals something very different. It tells others that your opinions are flexible under pressure and that your boundaries exist only until tested. The human mind notices this immediately, even if nothing is said. What feels like politeness on the surface registers as low resistance beneath it. Agreeing too fast removes weight from your perspective. When there is no pause, no consideration, no internal filter, your words sound automatic rather than chosen. This creates a subtle imbalance. The other person begins to lead the rhythm of the interaction while you fall into a responsive role. Over time, this dynamic becomes expected. Your approval is assumed, not earned, and your dissent becomes surprising rather than respected. This is how influence quietly disappears without conflict. The psychological root of rapid agreement is often a desire to be liked or perceived as cooperative. Unaware individuals mistake adaptability for strength. In controlled environments, however, adaptability without discernment reads as dependency. It suggests that belonging matters more to you than accuracy or alignment. Once others sense this, they stop adjusting themselves around you. They know you will adjust instead. There is also a cognitive shortcut at play. People subconsciously assign higher status to those who appear to be choosing, not reacting. A pause, even a brief one, signals internal authority. It shows that your agreement is the result of evaluation, not reflex. When you remove that pause, you remove the sense that your consent has value. Agreement without cost carries little respect. Strategic individuals understand that hesitation is not weakness. It is calibration. They listen fully, process internally, and respond only when they have decided their position. Sometimes the response is agreement. Other times it is partial alignment or quiet refusal. What matters is that the response feels owned. This ownership changes how others speak to you. They become more precise, more respectful, more careful with assumptions. Quick agreement also trains others to offload responsibility onto you. If you always say yes, your time, energy, and attention become communal resources. Requests turn into expectations. Expectations turn into obligations. Eventually, refusal feels like betrayal rather than choice. This is not because others are malicious, but because you taught them that access to you requires no negotiation. Internally, this habit erodes self-trust. Each unconsidered agreement is a small act of self-betrayal. You override your instincts to maintain external comfort. Over time, this creates internal friction, a quiet resentment that has nowhere to go. Many people live in this state, feeling drained and undervalued without understanding why. The cause is not overwork, it is over-consent. Controlled individuals replace automatic agreement with deliberate response. They allow silence to exist. They ask for time. They say, "I'll think about it," without apology. These simple behaviors recalibrate power immediately. Silence creates space. Space creates respect. Respect creates leverage. Very few people understand how much authority lives in those few seconds of restraint. When you stop agreeing out of habit, people notice. Some will test you. Others will adjust. The unaware may feel unsettled because the old pattern no longer works. This discomfort is not a problem. It is evidence that the dynamic has changed. You are no longer there to smooth the interaction. You are there to participate on your own terms. True ease does not come from agreement. It comes from self-alignment. When your yes is rare and considered, it carries weight. When your no is calm and unapologetic, it commands respect. And when your responses are chosen rather than automatic, others instinctively treat you as someone whose presence has value. Many people smile not because they are comfortable, but because they are uneasy. The smile appears automatically the moment tension enters the room, disagreement surfaces, or boundaries are tested. It is a social reflex learned early: smooth the moment, reduce friction, appear agreeable. Psychologically, however, this reflex exposes far more than it conceals. A smile in moments of discomfort signals submission to social pressure. It communicates that emotional ease matters more to you than internal alignment. The human mind is highly sensitive to emotional incongruence. When words, tone, and facial expression do not match, people trust the expression more than the language. A forced or misplaced smile tells others that you are suppressing something: disagreement, uncertainty, or resistance. Once this is perceived, your internal state becomes readable. Readability reduces leverage. Those who can be read can be managed. Smiling to mask discomfort also removes consequences from the environment. When someone oversteps, disrespects, or subtly tests boundaries, your smile reassures them that nothing is wrong. This trains behavior. The other person learns that their actions create no friction and require no adjustment. Over time, they escalate. Not out of cruelty, but because the feedback loop you provide tells them it is safe to do so. Silence with neutrality would have stopped the behavior. The smile invites its continuation. Unaware individuals believe that a pleasant expression maintains control. In reality, it relinquishes it. Control comes from emotional congruence, when your internal state and external signals align. Calm neutrality is far more powerful than forced warmth. A neutral face creates ambiguity. Ambiguity forces others to self-monitor. They become more cautious, more attentive, more aware of their own behavior. This shift happens without confrontation, explanation, or visible effort. There is also a hierarchy embedded in emotional signaling. High-status individuals do not rush to manage the emotional comfort of others. They allow moments to breathe. They let silence exist. They let tension reveal information. When you smile to relieve discomfort, you assume responsibility for the emotional state of the interaction. This places you in a lower position, managing the environment rather than directing it. Internally, habitual smiling during discomfort creates emotional fragmentation. You teach yourself to ignore internal signals in favor of external approval. Each time you smile through disagreement, you reinforce the idea that your internal reactions are inconvenient. Over time, this dulls self-awareness. You may still feel discomfort, but you no longer trust it enough to act on it. This is how people become socially smooth yet internally disconnected. Strategic individuals do not suppress expression, they refine it. They understand that stillness is not aggression. A neutral expression does not escalate tension, it clarifies it. When someone makes a comment that crosses a line, the absence of a smile is often enough. The other person feels the shift immediately. They may backtrack, clarify, or soften without you saying a word. This is power through restraint. Smiling selectively also preserves its value. When a smile is rare and genuine, it carries warmth and authority. When it is constant, it becomes background noise. People stop registering it. Worse, they stop taking you seriously in moments that require firmness. Emotional availability erodes credibility in high-stakes environments. Seriousness does not require harshness. It requires alignment. Many people fear that dropping the smile will make them appear cold or hostile. This fear is rooted in social conditioning, not reality. Calm neutrality is often interpreted as confidence and self-respect. It signals that you are comfortable with yourself and unafraid of mild tension. Those who are uncomfortable with this will project their discomfort outward, often labeling it negatively. That reaction reveals more about them than about you. When you stop smiling to mask discomfort, interactions change. Conversations slow down. People choose their words more carefully. Subtle power tests decrease. Your presence gains gravity. This is not because you became intimidating, but because you became coherent. Your external signals now match your internal state. True composure is not about appearing pleasant at all times. It is about being emotionally honest without being reactive. A neutral face, steady posture, and controlled silence communicate far more authority than forced friendliness ever could. And once others sense that your expressions are real, not performative, they interact with you on a different level entirely. Most people believe responsiveness is a virtue. They answer immediately, reply instantly, and make themselves available at all hours under the assumption that this signals reliability and respect. Psychologically, however, constant availability communicates something very different. It suggests that your time is unstructured, your priorities are flexible, and your attention can be redirected on demand. The human mind equates scarcity with value. When access to you is unlimited, perceived value drops, regardless of your competence or intent. Immediate responsiveness collapses hierarchy. In any interaction, the person who controls timing holds leverage. When you respond the moment a message arrives, you surrender that control. You place yourself in a reactive position, adjusting your focus to external demands rather than internal priorities. Over time, this conditions others to expect instant access. What begins as appreciation turns into entitlement, not because others are exploitative, but because patterns teach behavior. This habit is often driven by a fear of being forgotten, replaced, or perceived as uncommitted. Unaware individuals mistake urgency for importance. They believe that speed equals professionalism. In reality, high-level environments operate on a different rhythm. Those with authority are not rushed. They respond when it aligns with their schedule, not when it interrupts it. Their timing signals that their attention is a resource, not a reflex. Over-availability also erodes the weight of your responses. When you are always reachable, your words blend into the background of constant communication. There is no anticipation, no pause, no sense of deliberation. People skim rather than absorb. Contrast this with delayed but intentional responses. The pause creates psychological space. It implies that you considered, evaluated, and chose to engage. That choice alone increases the perceived importance of what you say. There is a deeper behavioral consequence as well. Constant responsiveness fragments focus. Your attention becomes divided into small, reactive bursts. This reduces strategic thinking and reinforces a shallow mode of engagement. Over time, you begin operating at the surface of situations rather than from a position of depth. Decisions become reactive rather than deliberate. This internal state is felt externally. People sense when someone is busy versus when someone is in control. Being overly available also invites intrusion. When you signal that access to you is easy, others feel comfortable interrupting, escalating, or bypassing boundaries. Meetings are scheduled without notice. Requests arrive framed as emergencies. Your time becomes a shared space rather than a protected one. Each accommodation reinforces the belief that your schedule exists to absorb external pressure. Controlled individuals understand that availability is a strategic signal. They do not disappear, but they regulate access. They set expectations quietly through behavior rather than announcements. Responses are consistent but not immediate. Availability exists within defined windows. This consistency trains others to respect timing without confrontation. The absence of urgency becomes normal. There is also a psychological recalibration that occurs when you delay responses. Others become more thoughtful in how and when they contact you. Messages become clearer. Requests become more considered. Frivolous communication decreases. This is not manipulation, it is environmental design. People adapt to the frame you establish. Internally, regulating availability restores self-trust. You no longer feel compelled to prove commitment through constant responsiveness. You act from choice rather than pressure. This reduces resentment and mental fatigue. When you engage, you are present. When you disengage, you are unapologetic. This clarity stabilizes your internal hierarchy, which then reflects outwardly. Many people fear that slowing responses will damage relationships or opportunities. In reality, it filters them. Those who respect you adjust. Those who rely on immediate access often reveal dependency rather than partnership. Strategic distance exposes dynamics that constant availability keeps hidden. True reliability is not measured by speed. It is measured by consistency, clarity, and follow-through. When you respond on your terms, you preserve energy, focus, and authority. People begin to treat your time as intentional rather than incidental. Conversations become more efficient. Expectations recalibrate. Your presence gains gravity without a single word being spoken. When you stop being instantly accessible, you reclaim the most valuable signal in any social or professional environment: control over your attention. And once that control is visible, others instinctively adjust their behavior around it. Many people laugh automatically when a joke lands at their expense, not because it is genuinely funny, but because laughter feels safer than tension. It is a reflex learned early: smooth the moment, show you are a good sport, avoid appearing sensitive. Psychologically, however, this reaction carries a cost that most never examine. When you laugh at something that diminishes you, you publicly approve of your own reduction. The room registers that approval instantly, even if no one consciously acknowledges it. Laughter is a powerful social signal. It communicates acceptance, alignment, and permission. When you laugh at a comment that subtly undermines you, you signal that the framing is acceptable. The other person learns that diminishing you carries no consequence. In fact, it may even earn social reinforcement. This creates a dangerous feedback loop. What begins as a small joke becomes a pattern, and the pattern becomes an unspoken role you are expected to play. Unaware individuals believe that laughing shows confidence. In reality, confidence is not the absence of reaction, but the presence of boundaries. True self-assurance does not require you to prove emotional toughness through self-erasure. The human mind respects those who take themselves seriously enough to protect their position without dramatics. Quiet refusal carries more weight than performative tolerance. There is also a hierarchy embedded in humor. Jokes are rarely neutral. They establish who is observing and who is being observed, who frames and who absorbs. When you accept humor at your own expense, you step into the role of the subject rather than the equal. Even friendly environments are shaped by this dynamic. Status is negotiated in small moments, not formal declarations. Laughing in these moments often stems from a fear of social isolation. People worry that not laughing will make them appear rigid, hostile, or insecure. This fear is understandable, but misplaced. Calm neutrality does not escalate tension, it exposes it. When a diminishing comment is met with silence or a steady gaze, the discomfort shifts back to the speaker. They become aware of their own words. That awareness is corrective. Over time, habitual self-directed laughter erodes internal authority. Each time you override the instinct that says, "This doesn't sit right," you weaken trust in your own perceptions. You teach yourself that social smoothness matters more than self-respect. This creates an internal split. Outwardly agreeable, inwardly unsettled. Many people live in this state without understanding why they feel quietly disrespected. Strategic individuals do not overreact, but they also do not self-dismiss. They understand that not every slight requires confrontation. Often, the most effective response is stillness. A neutral expression, a pause, or a simple change of subject communicates more than words. It signals that the frame has been rejected. The absence of laughter removes oxygen from the moment. In environments where humor is used as a power probe, this restraint becomes even more important. Some individuals test boundaries through jokes, watching closely to see who laughs and who does not. Those who laugh are categorized as safe to diminish. Those who do not are approached with more caution. This sorting happens instinctively. You are being read whether you participate or not. It is also important to distinguish between shared humor and self-undermining humor. Laughing with others is not the issue. Laughing at yourself when it reinforces a lowered position is. Controlled individuals choose when to use self-deprecation strategically, often from a position of already established authority. When status is secure, self-directed humor can humanize. When it is not, it invites erosion. Silence in response to a diminishing joke often feels longer to the one who made it than to anyone else. That silence creates psychological friction. The speaker may rush to explain, soften, or redirect. This reversal is subtle but significant. Without you saying a word, the responsibility shifts back to them. You remain composed. They become self-conscious. Many people underestimate how quickly patterns form. Laugh once, it is forgotten. Laugh repeatedly, it becomes your role. Others begin to assume that jokes at your expense are harmless because you have taught them so. Breaking that pattern later requires far more effort than preventing it early. Strategic restraint at the first signal saves energy long term. There is also a deeper social truth at play. People mirror the level of respect you show yourself. When you treat diminishing remarks as amusing, others follow your lead. When you treat yourself as someone whose position is not a punchline, the environment adjusts. This is not arrogance. It is coherence between self-perception and external signaling. Choosing not to laugh does not mean creating conflict. It means allowing reality to exist without cushioning it. A calm face, steady posture, and unhurried presence communicate that you are comfortable with tension and uninterested in self-reduction. That comfort is rare. Rarity commands respect. Over time, as you stop laughing at what diminishes you, interactions change. The jokes soften or disappear. Conversations become more measured. Others become more deliberate in how they engage you. This shift often happens quietly, without acknowledgement. That is how real power operates. Respect is not demanded, it is trained. Every reaction you give teaches others how to treat you. When you remove laughter from moments that undermine you, you remove permission. And without permission, most people recalibrate their behavior instinctively. Most people soften their language not because clarity is lacking, but because approval feels safer than precision. They dilute statements with qualifiers, hedges, and emotional padding in an attempt to appear agreeable. Words like just, maybe, kind of, and I think are inserted unconsciously as if certainty itself might offend. Psychologically, this habit communicates hesitation before the content is even processed. The listener does not analyze the words first, they register the lack of conviction underneath them. Language is a carrier of status. The way something is said often matters more than what is said. When you soften your language to avoid being disliked, you preemptively lower your position in the interaction. You signal that social comfort matters more to you than accuracy or authority. The human mind responds to this immediately. Your statements feel optional rather than definitive. They invite revision, debate, or dismissal. This habit is rooted in an early lesson. Many people absorb certainty risks rejection. Unaware individuals learn to protect themselves by staying ambiguous. They believe that if they leave room to retreat, they will be safer socially. In reality, this constant retreat erodes credibility. People trust those who sound settled in their position, even when they disagree with them. Few respect someone who seems unsure of their own stance. Softened language also creates an invisible imbalance. When one person speaks tentatively and the other speaks decisively, the decisiveness dominates the frame. Even if the content is weaker, it feels stronger. This is why confident misinformation often spreads more effectively than cautious truth. Certainty has gravity. Hesitation disperses it. There is also a psychological burden that comes with constant softening. You begin monitoring yourself in real time, filtering each sentence for palatability. This divides attention. Instead of thinking clearly, you think defensively. Over time, this reduces cognitive sharpness. Your ideas become less direct because they are constantly being negotiated internally before they ever reach the room. Many people mistake kindness for linguistic softness. In reality, kindness and clarity are not opposites. Calm, direct language can be respectful without being submissive. What people often fear is not being kind, but being judged. They soften language to manage others' emotional reactions, placing external comfort above internal coherence. This is a form of self-displacement. High-status individuals do not rush to cushion their words. They allow statements to stand on their own. This does not mean they are harsh or careless. It means they trust their judgment enough to state it cleanly. When they choose to soften, it is deliberate and strategic, not habitual. Their default is clarity. Softened language also creates plausible deniability, which feels protective but weakens impact. When you say, "I might be wrong, but maybe we could consider," you are already backing away from your own contribution. Others feel free to ignore it because you have signaled that it is disposable. Over time, people stop listening closely. Not because they are unkind, but because you have trained them not to. There is a social illusion that likability produces influence. In reality, influence produces likability. People tend to like those who appear grounded and decisive because decisiveness reduces uncertainty. When you soften language excessively, you increase uncertainty. You ask others to carry interpretive weight that you avoided. This subtly burdens the interaction and lowers your standing within it. Internally, habitual softening disconnects you from your own thinking. You begin to experience your ideas as tentative even when they are well formed. This self-doubt compounds. Eventually, you may stop sharing ideas altogether, not because they are weak, but because expressing them feels risky. Silence replaces contribution and visibility declines. Strategic individuals replace softening with composure. They speak in measured sentences without emotional padding. They allow pauses to do the work that qualifiers once did. A brief silence before or after a statement often communicates confidence more effectively than verbal hedging. Silence suggests that nothing needs to be added. It is also important to recognize that not everyone deserves access to your uncertainty. Vulnerability has context. When uncertainty is shared intentionally, it can build trust. When it is broadcast reflexively, it erodes authority. Discernment lies in knowing the difference. Most people never make this distinction. Those who stop softening their language often notice resistance at first. Some people are accustomed to being reassured through verbal cushioning. When that disappears, they may label the shift as cold or abrupt. This reaction is revealing. It shows who relied on your self-minimization to feel comfortable. Over time, however, most adjust. Clear boundaries become the new normal. Clarity also attracts a different caliber of interaction. People respond with more thoughtfulness. Conversations become more efficient. Disagreements become cleaner rather than emotionally charged. When language is precise, friction decreases rather than increases. Confusion is what creates tension, not certainty. Softening language to avoid being disliked is a short-term strategy with long-term costs. It trades respect for temporary comfort. Those who understand power choose the opposite trade. They accept the risk of being misunderstood in exchange for being taken seriously. They allow their words to land without apology. When you remove unnecessary qualifiers, your voice stabilizes. When your voice stabilizes, your presence changes. People begin to listen differently, not because you demanded attention, but because your words no longer ask for permission to exist. And once that shift occurs, you realize that respect was never about being liked. It was about being clear enough to stand by what you say. If this shifted how you see your daily behavior, like the video and subscribe for more controlled, power-aware perspectives. Reputation is not built by what you intend, but by what your behavior silently teaches others. And once you see that, you move differently.